I don't know what's wrong with this camera, but it just seems to be kicking out. Okay. Same day. It's not April 18th, 2020. I don't even know where that came from. Okay. It is April 13th, 2020. Right? And I'm obviously in War Room 1, people. I actually made it in here today, and I'm going over what I wrote. You know, I don't like to give myself a lot of credit for a lot of things, but I think I did a pretty good job in terms of what I wrote in light of what I was writing about. I'm up to page 13. It looks like I've got 16 pages written down here. Right? I'm going to try and get this thing here filed by Friday, which is the 17th. So between the 15th and the 17th, I will be going to the New Westminster Supreme Court of Canada courthouse, right, to file this as is. After I'm going over, and what I'm doing is I'm reading each sentence over, right? I added 2 more in between what I've read so far. Outside of that, you know, trying to, you know, nobody's proofreading this for me, people. Nobody's proofreading anything that I ever do. They're reading it, but they're not, well, that's not true. Paul, the lawyer for Andre and Amari, he did actually proofread something that I wrote to the public guardian and trustee back in 2015, asking for them to do an investigation into the disappearance of Uncle John. Okay? And everything else that was written into that request with the public guardian trustee. And basically what they did is they just phoned me up on the phone and said, no, he's fine. Oh, well, too bad. Click. And that was it. Because again, we're dealing with the public union sector. The public guardian and trustee say they're not connected to the government. They're an independent body. But yet, at the same time, they're the first ones who are called when old people are restrained, right? Are not allowed to leave, you know, their care facilities, and are expected to live the rest of their lives out in these care facilities. And if the family isn't accommodating to the request of the healthcare professionals to put that old person in that old folks home, then that's when the health authorities and their staff will draw upon that particular legislation, right, the public guardian and trustee, and will undermine the families and take over the old person's assets, while the families themselves have to take the public guardian and trustee to court to get back their rights. They didn't do that with John because, again, we were dealing with a senior nurse who had been working for the province for over 40 years, okay? And who runs and manages the immunization program of this province. The last time I did a check. Maybe she's retired now. She's rolling in the dough. She doesn't need to work anymore. But she'd work just to keep stockpiling those gold bullions, right? So she can brag in the community, 1, how professional she is, 2, what a loyal employee she's been to the province all these years, and how fucking rich she is. And, of course, her properties that she owns, right? That's why the public guardian and trustee wasn't called in for Uncle John. That's why they don't want me taking it to court and holding them to account that they didn't follow the fucking rules. Because I bring to the table the public guardian and trustee legislation where they actually didn't use it, but they were supposed to. But they don't want to hear that part, people. Instead, it's easier just to phone up the city with some random fucking complaint, right? and ignore what's in the neighbor's yard and force me out of my house so that I don't sit here and get this filed by Friday. I've decided to file this as is. And that's assuming that I can file it. Because when I get to the courthouse, I don't know what I'm going to find. I don't know if they're going to consider this to be an emergency. That's very ambiguous, the word. It's an emergency. That can mean anything to anybody. So, prior to all that, I don't even know what the hell's going on. Okay? All I know is I actually sat in here, trying to finish this with a good attitude, right? Stay positive, right? Don't get discouraged. That's what I mean by a good attitude. Right? Try and put what's happening around Ciera's situation, into perspective. First of all, knowing that I have to write a little something at the bottom of these 16 pages, well, not even at the bottom of the 16 pages, because even this is incomplete, people, because I've been distracted for the last, 2 weeks? Plus, right? If I don't do my laundry, what happens? If I don't do dishes, what happens, right? If I don't cook, what happens, right? If I don't sweep, wash my floor, whatever it is, when working outside, what happens? There's only so much time to do this stuff, right? Well, today was the day where, right? And then my landlady phoned, right? I don't know. She's having a nervous breakdown, right? Worried about the city. Gonna charge her another $15,000 come the 19th because of materials in the yard that I wanted to use this year. I wanted to use it last year, people. Right? Now Tisha's mad at me. She's mad at me because I uploaded the last video with me kind of hollering at my landlady, right? Because I'm all like in panic mode. Oh my God. You giving me 2 months to pack up and go where? Out into the country? Okay, I'm going to go out in the country. No money, no vehicle, right? Disabled child, right? Right? More land. You go in the country, what do you have to do? You have to break the land, right? What's the best way to break land? Plant potatoes. I don't know how much land is out where she wants to send me. But God forbid if it's like 2-3 acres. Could you see me out there with 2-3 acres? Apparently I can have a goat if I want. You know what, people? I would so love to do it. But here's the problem. I couldn't get out of this house, first of all, in 2 months. Right? That's the first thing. Okay? And then I'd need more than 3 bedrooms because after I uploaded that, I phoned her back and we talked and I did ask her, well, okay, since you've mentioned it, how many bedrooms is this house? Right? Because she's trying to entice me to take it because I can get a goat. You can have chickens, Judy. You can have a goat. And I'm like, oh, a goat? Right? So, of course, my next question is, how many bedrooms? 3 people. That's not enough bedrooms. That's not enough bedrooms because I need 1 or 2 of my kids living with me. I can't live by myself for any real length of time, right? With Amari and just Andre. I can't. If Amari was a functioning child, yes, I could have done it. But with him and his needs, with him getting heavier, right? I have to have somebody living, like one of my kids, or both, living with me as I raise Amari. So even if I wanted the house out in the country for what it was worth, because I'd love to have a goat, right? I would, and chickens, and I'd even push for a pony. But the thing is, I don't have any resources to gather wood and wire to make fencing, to make pens, right? Or to build anything. And I'm not going to be able to go out in the community and gather these things like I have over the years in terms of building up the compost boxes, you know, building up the greenhouse, you know, Mr. Lace's pen, you know, right? The hen house, aka / seedling room, right? A lot of that was done through recycled material, whether I got it from a neighbor's doing something and didn't need it, or whether I got it from Home Depot back in the day when my car was on the road. Or in some instances, I did buy plywood or beams, right? I don't have the energy, people, to do it again. I just don't. And I don't have the money to pay for anything other than maybe just a little bit left here. Like, I've got the vinyl, but I need the tool to cut the vinyl. If I have the right tool to cut the vinyl, it shouldn't be that hard to cut the vinyl and run it along the compost box, one box after another box, after another box, after another box, over a course of a week, to the point where every compost box is basically covered all in one color and with a what is it called? Product that doesn't rot for 25 years. And as long as the compost box can breathe on the inside, which the majority of them can, because they're already built with pallets, which gives them that breathing room, it wouldn't be much to run that around it. All I need to buy is that, people. That's it. I can't move to another house and have to spend $1,000 to build a shed like I did with Andre's shed. I spent $1,000 on that shed, people, between buying materials, because I rat-proofed that shed. I ran that wire that's made to go under the ground so the rats can't chew up. I did that through that whole shed, people, to make it rat-proof, right? Because the city took away the chickens. Initially, I bought that wiring for the hen house because I was going to make a hen house, right? But when the city took away the hens and Mr. Lace, they said, no, you can't have chickens. I'm like, okay, well, I don't need to run it under the ground. You right? So it sat. And then I ended up using it for Andre's shed. You can see in my last video, I have one left. That's it out of a whole bunch. I paid like $20, $30 per fucking sheet, people. I paid Jerry to build that house, people. I bought freaking roof shingles for that shed outside in the back, people. I can't start all over again out in the country with no money, with no car, with my eyesight going, with a disabled child in a 3-bedroom house without any help from my children. I'm hooped. I'm hooped. And the rent is $1,900, which I could not afford on my own. I can't. It's impossible. I don't even get that much. Okay. You know what would happen if I did something like that? All my money would be going to rent, and then CIBC Bank would be hijacking my bank account, telling me that I still owe them after all these years since Uncle John's been gone, $19,000 plus whatever I'm behind on in arrears. And they're going to seize my account, and they're going to take over whatever fucking deposits I get, which would be my rent. It would be nothing more than rent, right? And now I'm sitting out in the country with a hungry goat, right? No car, no kids, by myself with a disabled baby, right? Not being able to pay my rent because CIBC Bank hijacked my bank account because they want their fucking credit card payment. So, we know we got the city coming in on the 19th, which is a Saturday, right? Now, I'm going to upload this after this, and I'm going to get myself another coffee. It's probably my 6th coffee today. And I'm going to come back in here, and I'm going to try and finish this, right? Between now and tomorrow. I'm going to get up, and I'm going to work on this tomorrow. Because I have to go into New Westminster on Wednesday and identify Ciera's body. Okay? That's what's going to happen. And then next week, after the 20th, she will get buried. Alright? That's what's going to happen. And then when everything calms down and people can congregate, even if it takes 3 fucking years because that wicked woman said so, then we'll come together, all psychologically damaged from this fucking government warfare that they're playing upon 5 million people. Okay? And we'll have a celebration of life for Ciera, assuming that we're still alive in 3 years from now when they lift this social distancing ban. Based on a worst case scenario coming right from the horse's mouth when it comes to the health representative of British Columbia, Canada. So, the big question now is, do I have Ciera's body transferred from the original body bag that it's in right now into another body bag before I see her? Because apparently the original body bag is all stained up and whatnot, which, as it is, the whole experience is going to be unpleasant. And the funeral home, you know, there aren't too many people out there like me standing my ground saying, I want to identify my daughter's body as to how you received it, right? She's not looking the way she's looking because of the funeral home. She's looking the way she's looking because of the coroner. That's right. Who, at that time, when Ciera supposedly died, right, denied me my human right to identify my child. So in the meantime, I've got Tisha all pissed off at me, right? Again, right? Because, one, I'm fighting for a drug addict. That's, you know, she was a drug addict. She had an overdose. Get over it, Mom. You know, you're just looking for another fight, Mom. Like, you know, you need to let it go, Mom. And I'm like, hold on a minute. No. Just because you're a drug addict doesn't mean you didn't get murdered. Oh, you're accusing people of things that they didn't do. And I'm like, no, I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I'm just trying to understand what happened. And in terms of getting the truth, that's something that I haven't gotten yet, people. And, right? I don't need to explain myself. We all heard John's phone call to me, right? We all seen the video with us standing out on the porch with obviously something funky going on. It wasn't all on the up and up. There was nothing professional about that investigation, okay? The investigation was just the excuse to get us off the property, right? So that they didn't have to show me Ciera's body. But we need to ask ourselves, why wouldn't they want to show me when I was right there, people? And this is what I remind my landlady. What if it was your son and you were in my position? Right? This, right? In terms of, if it was your son and they're telling you, you cannot identify your son before you bury him, would you find that to be acceptable? And she said no. So I'm not only fighting for myself and my own family, people. I'm also fighting for the rights of my landlady. She's 76 years old, something like that. Could you imagine if she herself had to go through this at her age? Just imagine. What makes me different? Well, ShaMay, obviously, right? Toughened me up, because that's what the funeral home said. It's unusual for people to make the request like I'm making the request. But it kind of boils down to that 10%, right? They don't need to take 80%, 90%, 50%, or even 30%. They only need to take 10% out of the whole in order to make millions or billions of dollars when we're dealing with criminal activity that's being facilitated through the public union sector. Okay? So her son may never fall into that 10% category like my daughter fell into that 10% category twice, people. Right? He may be that 90% where she gets to identify him and, quickly bury him in peace. Right? Whereas I still haven't even seen her yet, people. In part because of the type of legislations that we have that are written in the favor of the union worker before it is with the public. And I said this with Uncle John. Well, it's the same kind of situation with bodies, whether they're in the hospital or whether they're in the morgue. Coroner's morgue, that is. So, I'm leaning towards as is in the body bag that she was delivered in. Or signed over. She wasn't delivered. She was signed over. Which, I've already told one funeral director that just with this whole experience, I'm starting to have a little bit more respect for your profession, right? In light of what you guys go through, being that I'm just kind of taking a peek, like I'm not going to school for it, people. I'm just trying to protect my family's rights. I'm trying to protect Ciera, even if it doesn't seem like it very much in her death. And I'm trying to protect other people's rights, right? Because even after I file this, people, I will write another lawsuit specifically around what happened with Ciera. And that's when I'll really try and fine-tune on that legislation and, work towards building in the safety nets where people like my landlady, if she ever found herself in my position, right, she could easily get a second opinion in terms of an autopsy, right, done by an independent forensic pathologist, right? My landlady has that right if whatever happened to her son didn't sit well with her, regardless of whether her son was an addict or not, right? Just because people do drugs, just because people are addicts and maybe out of control with their addictions, regardless of their color or ethnic heritage, doesn't mean they're immune to not being murdered. Never mind being subject to a snuff movie. And if I'm at a 40 to 60%, it is possible, but, we got to give it some time, do a little more research, put a few more links together, and one way or another, the truth is going to come out of that matter, right? And if that's what happened to Ciera, then the people who did that need to go to jail. Because if it happened to her son, she would want the same kind of justice, but not if she's not going to be allowed to be able to locate that truth because of legislation which is clearly bias and prejudice against the people that it's supposed to serve. In terms of, it should be written in the behalf of the people and not the employees. I'm not going to go around in circles with it, people. You know, I go on what's right. I've already tried to tell Tisha that, you know, we don't have civil rights lawyers in British Columbia, Canada. And if we do, that person is hidden away, you know, maybe caught up with a whole bunch of fucking drama and just hasn't heard about my story. Or maybe there are no real civil rights lawyers in this province that can wrap their heads around this stuff. And at this point in my life, you know, I'm not trying to be a civil rights lawyer, okay? But it kind of puts me in that category simply because I'm not just talking okie dokie. I'm talking real legislated acts that I don't necessarily like to read all the time, because technically I should be planting walnut trees so everybody has a tree so that at some point they don't go extinct. But you can see, right, I just printed them out. I'm going to read over them quickly. I may add one or two notations in with this at the end of, you know, what I'm reading right now. But this is the kind of stuff that I'm going to go into round 2 with, if I really decide that what happened to Ciera was completely wrong in terms of how the police handle it, which I'm already saying that, people. That was not a professional crime scene. There was nothing professional about what they did. Okay? Which, I don't know what legislated act or fucking statute that falls under, or mandate, rules or regulations. Right? I mean, obviously I have to try and figure that one out. But, you know, or even what the coroner did, I definitely have to challenge the right to be able to get an independent autopsy, right? You know, and in terms of stimulating the economy, I think it would be a good thing to have independent pathologists, because there are a lot of people, doctors, that can do that. They're qualified to do that, but because of the restrictions that some government brought in back in the day to disallow physicians from being able to do that, you know, it just guaranteed a free-for-all with the coroner's office to do as they please, you know, and never be fact-checked. Never be fact-checked. So if I don't challenge that, people like my landlady and her family, and so on, and so on, and so on, sooner or later, one day, somebody is going to be subject to the same fucking issues that I've been subject with, and they're not going to have no rights. That's basically what's going to happen. If I don't stand up and try and be somewhat of a civil rights lawyer to the best of my ability, right, somebody is going to have their human rights taken away from them. Okay, and with these politicians coming in with their playbook, making everybody paranoid with each other, where you can't even fucking talk anymore without feeling relaxed, right? Then, God forbid. I want to show you something. Hold on. See, I'm moving slow. My stomach is upset. Anyway, like I said, I did talk to my landlady, and because I have to pay my rent in increments, right? I give her anywhere between $1,150 to $1,200 on the first of the month, and then I give her anywhere between $700 and $800 sometimes by the 15th of the month to compensate for the $1,900 that I owe her for rent, and then I still owe her $315, so I make $50 payments on that. So she asked me if I had some beans. She loves these beans. Right? These beans she really loves. So I had a few there for planting, but these were from last year, right? They dried in their husks. So these should be nice and alive. And her son came because they had to take the car off the road because there's no point. They can't go anywhere, right? They're stuck at home. And so her son came to get the rent. And I told him, right? I said, look, I said, you know, last time she came, I felt so sad for her. So sorry that she, you know, had her mask and her gloves and you had her little bag out, put the money in the bag like a little Easter, like, you know, Halloween, right? You know, and so I gave him a little plastic bag with the check in there, and I said, look, you can tell her. I opened up the jar, right? I told him to open up the bag. And I already had a little bag in there, but there was like maybe only 7 or 8 beans, which probably would have been fine. But anyway, I said, look, just open up the bag, right? Because I know your mom, right? You know, and you're my witness. And I poured the beans just like this, straight from the jar, into the bag. So you can tell your mom that I didn't touch them. I didn't touch no beans. Now, not to be afraid. Not to be afraid, people. Like, this is ridiculous. Our governments are making a society that will be mentally unstable and completely unhealthy. And if we don't have human rights to be able to protect our loved ones from being exploited, regardless of what those situations are, right, then it's just going to deteriorate to a point where we're going to end up, I don't know, you know, I was going to say like Nazi Germany. Right? That's kind of like the direction we're going in. You just wake up one day and you find yourself in Nazi Germany. Like, think about it. Right? So, I'm not going to do another video, right? For a while. Maybe not tomorrow, right? Because I need to focus on this. Unless, of course, some big hoopla. Why are you putting that online? Calm down, you know? And like, this is the thing. You know, I tell my daughter, Letitia, like, if I'm losing my house, people, right, because of gang stalking, basically, right, when you can clearly see my neighbors have garbage. Oh, I know. It would only take, right, 15 minutes to pick it up, so therefore it's not a problem, even though it lays there for weeks and months on end. Having a car over there, 2 cars with no license plates, one on the actual, you know, curbside, and one in the actual yard, right, where both of the cars that are uninsured in my yard are inside the yard, right? And I, like, you know, like, and I went through this once before with the city, right? When they were harassing me before, and I said, well, look at their yard. Oh, but nobody complained. You can complain now, though, if you want. I looked at the city, I said, no, I'm not going to complain on my neighbors for their yard, right? Because, personally, it wasn't disturbing me. Right? You know, they were elderly Korean people that been living there for years and years and years and years and years and years. And they were happy and they were productive. So who was I to cast judgment? I didn't. And I told the city, I'm not going to do that. Right? But that's what they expected me to do in order to be able to not hold them to account as to why they were harassing me, right? I don't know where I'm going to move, people, when I leave this house. I don't know. Somebody suggested I should be registering with subsidized housing. or in a co-op or something like that. The problem with that, people, is it would be like living at that little house in a 3-bedroom out in the country. I'd be inside by myself with a disabled child that's getting heavier and heavier and heavier. And at some point, you know, I need my son to pick up Amari and to maybe move him over there for me, right? So that, you know, we can go about our day, right? Or Tisha, or whatever. And, you know, after living at Gateway Place, honest to God, the last thing I need is another Marnie in my life. And I've already got the Marnies. I've got the Eleanors. I've got the Cheryls. I've got this dude over here harassing my landlady constantly to buy this house, right? Because he knows he can kick me out, fill it up with a bunch of guys that are students, make good money, and then have 2 houses on the block, right? So that when it comes time to tear down the whole block, he's in a position of power to make even more money. That's all it's about. But to go off into some location where I can't afford it, and I'm by myself, without not even one child helping me in terms of my adult children, right? That puts me in a very bad position. If I was 45 years old, maybe it would be different. But I'm pushing 60, right? And I'm not as strong as I used to be. And I am being severely gang stalked, right? It's apparent. That's why I do these videos. This is what I tell Tisha. This is why I do the videos. Was my landlady gang stalking me? No. She's been wanting to sell this house for a long time, people. Okay? You know, it's a problem because there's maintenance to it. The economy is crashing now, you know. But all in all, you know, I try and compromise. You know, that porch repair that I did with whatever I did, it worked okay. You know, finishing up with the garage isn't really a big issue for the summer, right? Because it's already half done. The other half will go fast, right? It's just another 4 or 5 more beams. That's it, right? The soffits are working out perfect. You know, it's just you need time to do those things. I don't know. I just don't know right now. All I know is I need to get this filed. That's what I know. That's what I'm going to see my daughter on Wednesday. I am going to do the right thing no matter what people say at me. Even if it's my own kids. Right? I have to do this for Ciera. I have to do it for my kids. I have to do it for my grandchildren. I have to do it for Ciera's friends. I have to do it for my surrounding community who happens to be the elderly, like Mrs. Gill, who has her own children who might one day look back and thank me, even though I'm not around anymore. They might thank me for standing up and doing the right thing. So that's what I'm going to do for ShaMay. I'm going to finish this between now and tomorrow, and I should have this filed by Friday. Okay, the city is coming on Saturday. I will deal with the city on Saturday. That's what I'm going to do.